Hey everybody, and welcome back to a new Gravity Ace devlog. Hope you're healthy out there. We're okay. We're sheltered in place. Everyone in my family's fine, but going a little nuts. I considered not making videos or pausing the devlogs, but I need to do it, and I suppose some of you might need the distraction. So here we are. The topic today is, why is finishing a game so hard? Closing in on the release date, I've been thinking about this a lot. There's just so much stuff, details, polishing, quality of life fixes, bugs, of course. Game jams are great at teaching this because they compress the whole dev lifecycle, including release, down into a short time frame. So you're kind of forced to go through, everything. And you learn a lot by releasing a game, even if it's for a game jam, because that last couple hours can be hectic with all the little things that you didn't think of when you were just programming the game or making art. So I'm going to go through some of the changes that I've made since my last beta, which was February 17th. It's been a month. It's been more than a month. There have been quite a few changes, but I'm just going to stick to the ones that have been sort of like, here's the type of thing that is why finishing is difficult. So let's just jump right into it. All right, here we are at the first commit. Juice the points. They're way more obnoxious now. So this was basically feedback from testing at events and, with friends and at the game dev meetup I go to. Right now you earn points, but a lot of people didn't really notice them. The point system obviously needed some polishing, so I spent some time polishing it, making, the labels bigger, adding floating numbers that would appear when you blow things up, that sort of thing. I fixed the volume sliders. Another feedback I got was that the volume sliders didn't seem to do anything. And the reason was pretty simple. I was using a linear scale, 0 to 100, for the volume slider itself, and then doing a conversion from linear to decibels. And the problem that the players discovered, and that I also noticed, was that when you're moving the slider at the top of the scale, it barely changes the volume. When you're at the bottom of the scale, it changes it too much. And that's just because the conversion is a little wonky. So I just did away with the conversion entirely, changed the scale from minus 30 dB to 0 dB, which is the logarithmic scale that our ears work at. And just didn't have to do the conversion at all, just directly take that value and pump it into the audio bus. Here's a bug in the level chooser. I don't even remember what the bug was. Let's see. When you move focus off of a control, you can tell it which control should get the focus next. And this was referencing old demo controls that don't exist anymore. Add attributes to enable ship functions. This was basically an idea where certain functions of the ship, like the gun or the beam or the fuel, could be turned on and off. Here's a typo that I fixed. What was the typo? Oh, interesting. It wasn't even like a necessary... Oh, God. I'm so tedious sometimes. Here's a gameplay change where I decided to make the little pickups that you see in the game kind of creep towards the player, because I'd gotten some feedback that sometimes they're a little hard to pick up or whatever. I ended up undoing this just a couple of days ago. But, that's how it works sometimes. You got to try something, play with it for a while, see how you like it, and then if you don't like it, you undo it. That's what source control's for. It makes it really easy to undo a change later. Here's a change where the health bar was flashing. So when you shoot an enemy, the whole enemy flashes white. Well, so does the health bar. And what was happening is it was difficult to see the health bar if the hits were coming in too fast. So I fixed this so that the health bar, when it flashes, you can still see the level that the health bar is at, even when it's flashing. Don't remember what that one was for. So this one can connect entities in editor without typing. This is a quality of life issue. Connecting entities in the built-in level editor was fairly difficult before, and you had to use the keyboard, you had to type in some IDs. It was a pain. It was functional, but it was a pain. So this is a quality of life fix where you can just do it all with the keyboard now. Something that was necessary to be done. It was a chore. So I put it off, and here we are at the point where there's like, I have to do it. So I did it. Then a fix for that, obviously. Here's a fix for lag when rotating large walls. When you were rotating walls in the editor, sometimes it would lag, depending on how big the wall was, and it was really dumb, actually. It came down to something very simple. So when you select a wall, you see these little circles that let you grab the polygon and move them around. What it was doing was when you were rotating, it was destroying them and redrawing them every frame. That's what this code is. So instead, I only do that when you're done dragging, basically. Pretty simple. I changed the way signals are visualized in the editor, improved the way dialog previews appear in the editor, so these are all quality of life things. While I was doing some refactoring, I wrote some extra comments so I can remember what that code does. As you go through and clean things up and refactor things, part of that for me is to write some comments where needed, just so that I can, when I come back to it later, I don't have to spend so much time figuring out what the heck this was supposed to be doing. This is some refinement of the UI, adding some buttons. I add an animated crosshair. So this goes back to that whole fix where I did connecting entities in the editor without typing. I had to do a bug fix for it. I changed visualization for it. I wrote some comments for it. I refined the UI for it. I add an animated crosshair when you're doing it. It's never just one thing, right? Let's see. I did a major UI refactor of the editor, just so that every function now has a button. The UI is more cohesive. Everything just looks nicer and works nicer. Before, a lot of this functionality was hidden in like different keyboard controls or dialog boxes or something, and now it's all visible and you can see everything that you can do all at a glance. While I was doing that, I took a liberty and added a glitch shader because I like writing shaders. That's this thing. And, so that way you can pre-visualize exactly where the thing's gonna land when you place it. And then, of course, because I did that, I added this placement animation. Yeah, because obviously that was necessary. So I wrote a real help system for the editor. There's a button here. It opens a web page. Ba-bam. You get how to play, controls, player guide, but you're popped right into the level editor, explains everything to you. Pretty happy with that. Here's me changing the signal visualization back again because it was too slow. That one that I added in here. Or was it this one? Undid it. It was too slow. While I was playing too, I noticed a lot of the sounds in the UI were too noisy or too loud, so I rebalanced them. A new sound effect for creating objects. Fixed my undo and redo for wall drawing and erasing, so that all works now. I can erase and undo and undo. Moved my delete button. I'm tracking a local high score now per level, so you can see whether your second run improved or not. Fixed a bug. Fixed another bug. Fixed another bug. Added terminal velocity to people so that so I added a terminal velocity to the game, but I need to add it to certain entities in the game. So people have it, some debris has it, the reactor core has it. That's just so that if you drop it, you can have a chance of catching it. I let astronauts have a toggle where you can start them out in the world dead. No spoilers here, but that will come into play. Made the beam targets more obvious. This is UI polish, basically. Changed the icons. Changed the continue button on what? What is this? Oh, so in the dialog box, the continue button used to be the button you would push on the controller or the mouse. It would say A or a space or whatever. I just changed it to this generic one, and I changed the UI throughout the game to be more generic, so that I don't have to make it context aware. It was just becoming a pain. Here's where I stopped coins from creeping towards the player because it turns out I didn't like it doing that. I made enemies drop fuel on death all the time. I'm letting that one sit with me for a while. I'm not sure about it yet, but we'll see. Here's suppressing a warning from the code editor. Okay, so and then these three changes are basically, here's a task where I wanted to be able to, when the player flies away from the level, if they fly too far, I wanted something to happen. The natural thing to happen is they get beamed out by the mothership, But that means I had to refactor how I was doing the beam out. The beam out was originally attached to the exit beacon, which is an entity you could place in the game. So instead, because you might exit without hitting an exit beacon now, I had to move that functionality from the exit beacon into a core component, and then that core component would get called by the exit beacon, or it could be called by this new code. That's what this is. I also added an arrow that points the player back towards the combat zone if they're leaving the area. And here I changed the algorithm for detecting if they're in the level or not. It basically does a physics query to see if they're near a wall. And if they're close enough, then they're in the level. And if they're too far away, then they're out of the level. But more quality of life here. I'm showing the path to the level in the editor. When you're starting a level and you launch a level, now the background of the launcher is opaque. That is opaque, and it used to be semi-transparent. Refactored campaign file API. So this is in preparation for letting players share their levels. And what I had to do here was, in the level file, in some of the files, there would be an absolute path to the campaign. And I wanted to remove that just to make it easier for me to move campaigns from a user area into the game area, which has a different path. And also just to make it easier for people to take their entire level folder, the campaign folder, put it online someplace, let somebody else download it. So there's some work in here of basically refactoring that API to make it simpler to code and understand, make it more consistent, and then also to support those other functions. That was a lot of work that took me a couple of days. Did some updates to some of the existing levels. I removed the intro and I created an attract mode. Back in the old days in arcades, attract mode would be the mode that you would see before you put a quarter in. It would try to attract you to put a quarter in the game. But then you see, what was it? The next day I disabled it because I just thought it's not quite there yet. It needs some new videos, so I just turned it off for now. I added an opening crawl for the first level in a campaign. It's sort of like a Star Wars type thing. I added a how to play scene. And this is all live with real components from the actual game, so you can see them moving and doing their thing. Of course, then I had some bugs in the how to play scene that I had to fix. Suppressing a warning, updated the background. And I changed the key bindings for raising and lowering objects in front or in back of each other, and also for changing the zoom. I basically just swapped them. And I allowed exit beacons to start out active. It's just an option. If they're hidden initially in the level, and then they appear once you activate them. But I've given it the option here to start them out active, so they don't need to be activated. Anyway, that's just a look at some of the things that pop up as you're trying to finish the game. You're realizing, oh crap, I've got bugs to fix. I needed to add this extra scene that I didn't think of or that I've been putting off. I need to add some quality of life improvements that I've been just suffering with for this whole time, but I haven't done them because they've been a chore to do. Just tons of little things like that all add up. It's all work that needs to be done. Some of it's not particularly fun, but it needs to be done before you can launch the game. Otherwise, people will be like, hey, this game would have been great if you'd only finished it. So this is all the work that you do to finish it. And I'm going to have a lot more. I won't bore you with it all, but this won't be the end. I'm sure I'll be making updates for another month of this kind of thing. But I think, the good news is, I think I've got a very stable base now for the game. Everything, the editor works great, gameplay works great. I just need to actually, finish the levels and ship the thing now. And that's what I'm working hard on. That's my top priority right now. Anyway. Hope you're all doing well, staying healthy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.